the next 48 hours, you have an opportunity to download this plugin for free. That's right, for free. A huge thank you to Waves for giving you guys this plugin for free for the next 48 hours after the launch of this video. But we're going to be jumping in and talking about the Kramer HLS audio plugin. It's an EQ plugin that you apply to one of your channels here in DaVinci Resolve, and it's used a lot in the music world, but we can also use it on our dialogue here in DaVinci Resolve. And if you're a little scared or intimidated by using the EQ, this plugin helps simplify things a little bit and really just does a lot of work on the back end for you. There's a few knobs and buttons that we can change in the plugin here to get the sound that we want. And we're going to cover the full plugin today. I'm going to show you what each and everything in the plugin does. Looks kind of like this right here. Talk about what it does, how it works. And I've also got a sample that we're going to be using to show you and let you hear what the difference is when we use only this plugin, nothing else, but only this plugin on a clip where I have a lav mic. So let's just show you that sample clip real quick, what it sounds like before we have any processing. Halfway through the clip, you'll hear what it sounds like to turn on this EQ plugin to see how it improves the audio of the clip. I did use a moderately priced lav mic so that you can see what it sounds like when we use an EQ plugin like this on a lav mic, because I'm assuming a lot of you guys have lav mics out there. You don't have all these fancy microphones, audio interfaces, all that kind of stuff. Probably using lav mics a lot or on camera mics. So you're going to see how this plugin affects a lav mic that's just attached directly to my camera. So let's roll that example. You can hear what it sounds like. Then we're going to get into the plugin, talk about it, and show you how to apply it onto your clips. When it comes to working with EQ in your videos, it could be a little challenging, a little daunting, a little scary, but that's why we've got awesome plugins like the Kramer HLS plugin from Waves here. It's going to help make working with the EQ a little bit easier, a little less daunting. This plugin is used a lot for musical stuff, musical instruments and things like that, but it can also work for our dialogue here in DaVinci Resolve. That's what we're talking about, and you've been hearing the before now, and if I go ahead and turn it on now, this is going to be the after of what it sounds like when we turn on this plugin, work with the settings a little bit, and try and make our audio sound the best that we can. So let's jump into this plugin, show you how it works. We're going to cover everything. You're going to get it for free if it's within the first 48 hours here. And yeah, with that said, let's jump into this video. So in Resolve here, I'm in Fairlight, and the first thing we want to do is take a look at the plugin and look at what all the knobs, buttons, and dials do. Once I explain it, I'll show you how I applied it to my example that you already saw and the changes that I made to get it to sound the way that it did. And then at the very end of the video, I'll just quickly tell you how you can get this installed on your machine if you're not sure how to install a Waves plugin or if you've never done it before. That's where we're headed. Let's jump into it. So to find the plugin, once you already have it installed, I'm going to come to my audio track 2 here, and then I'm going to go to my effects in my mixer. So backing up a little, if you need to make sure your mixer's open right at the top. Under your mixer, you've got effects. I'm going to go ahead and click on the plus. I'm going to come down to the EQ section because it's an EQ. And then I'm going to go to VST, and if you come down, you have Kramer HLS Mono. Now, I have a mono track for my dialogue, which is why it shows up as a mono effect. If you have a stereo track, you can use it as a stereo effect on a stereo track as well. You get both with the plugin when you download it. So this is what the effect looks like when you open it up. Now, it looks a little complicated, but trust me, it's not that bad. And there's only a few things that we actually want to use in this effect anyway. So just starting right at the top, you've got a couple different things up in here. You can select a preset. Now, if you look at them, you have a lead vocal preset, right, for singing. You can start there and try that if you want. There's other presets for instruments here. Like I mentioned, it's used for instruments a lot and for music a lot. But we're going to be making our own settings here for just dialogue, since I think that's what you guys are probably most interested in. But you can try one of the presets if you want. You can save your own preset once we get some settings set up for you. And then that way, boom, you just apply it. You're done. You're good to go. These next two buttons here will scroll through the presets for you if you want to hear what they sound like. You've got an A and a B button, so you can set the effect 2 different ways and see how your clip responds to the settings that you have and hear it back to back. So let's get into the plugin and all these things down here. So on the left-hand side of the effect here, we've got the things that allow us to work with the EQ. On the right-hand side, we've got things that allow you to add in some noise, both like a hum and a hiss and a noise, because sometimes with instruments, if you're trying to emulate old analog setups with a digital setup, you have to add that kind of noise back in that might have been, present in the original equipment, I'm going to say back in the day, right? When we just had analog effects and things like that. So right at the top of the EQ section here, the first thing you see is we have something that says mic and line, and then we've got a preamp dial here. Now, we don't actually need to use this because for dialogue, for just speaking that we're working on in DaVinci Resolve here, We don't need to use this because what this is going to do is add in some coloration, a little bit of harmonic distortion. It's going to add in a little bit of hiss and hum, kind of to emulate or help emulate what the original effect sounded like way back in the analog days, okay? You might want to use that if you're working with instruments or something like that, but the fact that we are working with dialogue here, I don't want any of that, right? We don't want background noise in our dialogue. So these settings almost don't matter if you use it or not. I would just leave this down at 20. And this little flip knob here, the little toggle, it doesn't matter because in a minute, I'm going to show you how to make sure that this actually isn't applying anything to our clip or to our track, I should say, through the effect. You don't really have to worry about this top part for dialogue. For music, that's a different ballgame, but for dialogue, you shouldn't have to worry about it. The next section down here is a high frequency EQ. So this is going to allow you to boost or bring up the frequency above 10K or 10,000, or you can reduce it. So it depends on what you want to do. And a lot of times, if you wanted a little bit more clarity, a little bit more breadth to the dialogue, maybe a little bit crisper, you could boost it a little bit in that 10 plus K range, right? So you can see right here, it says 10K, and then we have one dial, right? So obviously if we go to the plus side, we're increasing by that many decibels, right? 4, 8, or 12 dB. Or if we go the other way, we're going to reduce our EQ for anything above 10K by -4, -8, or -12 dB. So just so it's really clear on what this is doing, if we look at our EQ in DaVinci Resolve here, we're at about 10K right here in our frequency on point number 5. If I drag it down, that's reducing the dB level. If I drag it up, that's increasing the dB level. Now, when you increase it, you might add in a little bit of clarity and a little bit more presence to the voice, right? It might make it a little bit crisper. And if we drop it down, maybe it's going to help get rid of any higher, hiss kind of noise or higher pitched things that we don't want to hear, but it may also muffle the audio a little bit. So this is one where you're going to slide it back and forth, try it and see how it sounds. So looking at the effect, you might want to boost it a little bit. I would probably recommend that you give it a slight boost. Going to help with the clarity of your audio a little bit, and you'll see how it affects our clip in a minute. For now, I'm going to leave it on 0. The next section here we have is the mids, the mid-range frequencies. So again, if we look at our EQ here in DaVinci Resolve, this is going to affect anything from about 700 hertz right here up to 6,000 hertz right up here. So 6K up here, all the way down to 700K here. So in the effect, we can either boost or cut anything in this range. Now, the effect here is going to automatically apply a bell-shaped curve for us. So what does that mean? Well, if we just, for example, look at our point number 4, you see when I drag this down or up, it has kind of like a bell shape to it, right? So the plugin has a built-in bell curve to it. Whereas if we're working with the EQ here in Resolve, we can change that by adjusting our Q factor here, right? We can make it, real narrow, real wide, but the effect has it built in for you. You don't even have to worry about that Q factor. Now, keep in mind, your dialogue typically lives in that 1 to 2K range, right? Anywhere from a little below 1 to a little above 2, maybe 2.5K. So what I would recommend, if we take a look at our effect here, is for the mids, I would set this to about 1.4 or 2, maybe. If you're a female, you might want to go a little higher, or if you have a higher pitched voice, you go a little higher. If your voice is a little bit lower, or has a little bit more, low end to it, then you might want to bring this down closer to 1K. And that's going to say, okay, this is the point that we want to either raise or lower it. That includes our bell-shaped curve on there. This dial up here is going to tell us, are we going to boost or are we going to cut that frequency? Now, you might think if I grab this, you see I can only go one direction, right? It goes up to 15, and I can't go down, right? So how do I boost it and cut it? Well, that is where this PK and TR come in handy. So if this is set to PK on the top here, that is going to allow you to boost the frequency. So in this 1.4K range, it's set to PK on the toggle. If I bring it up, it's going to boost my signal, right? It's going to bring up the EQ in that range. Now, if I want to cut in that range, which for dialogue here, I would recommend that you probably want to cut in that range. You do not want to boost it. I'm going to change this to TR. So TR is going to allow us to cut at 1.4. Whatever this dial right here is set to, we're going to be able to cut those frequencies. And again, we have the same adjustments here, right? It goes from 0 up to 15 dB that you can either cut or boost in that range. So I'm going to recommend that you go with TR here because you probably want to cut in that 1 to 2K range, give or take a little bit. That's generally what I find needs to happen with the majority of microphones and setups that I've ever edited audio for. So this is what I do. Keep it on TR, set it around 1.4, maybe 2, and you can dial this up as far as you need till it sounds good. In the section at the bottom here, we're dealing with our bass frequencies. So if we take a look, the first thing we can do is look at our dial right here, and this is going to tell us what frequency are we at. And you notice we've got 0, then we've got 60, 120, 250, and 400. So these are the frequency ranges above 50 hertz. When it comes to bass frequencies, they all live on the lower end of the frequency scale. So let me just bring up our EQ again. So when we are looking at our bass frequencies, this bottom bass knob is going to affect everything from around here, around 400, all the way down to 0. So when we look at this big knob right here, if we took this knob and brought it up, we are going up to the frequency that's listed there. And then we can boost that frequency if we want. In order to boost that frequency, we come up to the knob that's right here, and we can just roll it on up, and it goes from 0 all the way up to 15 dB. So you can boost any one of those frequencies by up to 15 decibels. Now, let's say maybe because we're doing dialogue here, I don't actually want to boost any of those, right? Maybe I want to cut some frequencies because my audio sounds a little muddy, a little muffled. How do I do that? Well, if we look at the same knob right here and we look below it, you see we've got 3, 6, 9, 12, and 15. Now, what this means is that at 50 hertz, because 0 here represents 50 hertz, that's what the effect has set as the default setting for the bass frequency here of 50 hertz. So at 50 hertz, if I go 3, I'm reducing or cutting the bass by 3 decibels there. Could cut by 6, 9, 12, or 15 decibels. Just looking at the EQ, what does that mean? So we are at, let's see, 50 dB right here. So we're at 50. So if I change this to -3, I'm bringing down -3. You go down to -6, you're reducing -6 dB, and so on and so forth. So that's how that works. So you might decide, do I need to cut the bass frequencies for my dialogue? It sounds muddy and I don't like it. Or does my dialogue sound a little thin and I could use a little extra bass in there? In that case, if your dialogue is sounding a little thin, you might want to come to, say, 100 and 250. I might try 250 to start, and then you can just boost it up a little bit, right? Boost it up, give you a little extra low end into your dialogue there. Depends on your clip, depends on your location, where you were filming, how close is the microphone to your subject. All the good audio tips that we try to do while we're actually recording our audio will definitely play an impact as far as how you're going to set these different things for your EQ. So that is the EQ section, and that is the main section that you want to look at when you're using this effect. And real quick, down at the bottom here, EQ cut, you can turn it on and off if you want to hear the quick before and after. And then this other button here is inverting the phase. You don't need to worry about that for working with your dialogue. So on the right-hand side here, we've got a VU meter that's going to give you your levels. Below that, we've got several knobs here. Now, these are the ones that we are not going to really worry about too much because we don't want to apply any of those colorations or extra hums and hisses that are nostalgic of the original effect. We don't want to apply that to our dialogue here in DaVinci Resolve. I want good, crisp, clean audio, or dialogue, I should say, in DaVinci Resolve for my videos. So for this section here, you don't actually have to worry about any of these other than this button right here, the one all the way on the right, the analog. So we want to make sure that this is set to the off position and off is highlighted. That way, none of that stuff's going to be applied and we don't have to worry about it. Below that, we have trim, and that's going to show you the maximum peak level of the output signal coming out of the effect. And then you've got an input gain here as well as an output, right? So you can adjust your levels of your original audio coming into the effect as well as your output of the effect or of your audio coming out of the effect. So, for example, if you applied a bunch of EQ and it sounds like you lost some of that volume or some of that gain as it's coming out of the effect, you can always boost it a little bit here using the output slider. So now you've seen how the effect is laid out, what the different parts and pieces do. Let's take a look at our example, and we're just going to make some adjustments here using the effect, only the effect. I'm not going to use anything else here on my clip, and we're just going to hear the difference of how it sounds. So in Resolve here, I have this second half of my example, the one that you heard in the beginning of the video. Let's go ahead and select a range so that we can loop this so we can hear the differences as we mess around with the EQ a little bit here. So I'm going to highlight it using the range selection tool. Then I'm going to go ahead and hit the loop back button there so it'll keep playing my video over and over again. And then I'm going to use Option or Alt to start playing the video and allow it to loop over and over again. Now, when we're in the effect here, the things I'm going to start out with is first, actually, let's go back and I'm just going to go to full reset, make sure everything's set to the default settings. And what I'm going to start with is make sure that this guy's turned off right here because I don't want any of that other background noise and hissing stuff happening. And what I'd like to do is start kind of with the mid-range, right? Because my vocal, I know, lives in, that's a 800 to 2.5K range. So I want to clean that up a little bit. And then I'm going to move to the highs a little bit and then see, do we sound muddy? Do I need a little more bass in there? What do we got going on? So I'm just going to go ahead and play through the clip. For my mids here, like I mentioned earlier, I'm going to start down at 1.4 because I know that's kind of the middle of my dialogue or my vocal frequency range. And yours is probably going to be similar. I'm going to change my button here to TR because I want to cut in that range. I don't want to boost it. And I'm just going to listen to it and dial this up until it sounds like it's cleaning it up a little bit. So let's loop this and see what we got here. Go ahead and turn it on now. This is going to be the after of what it sounds like when we turn on this plugin, work with the settings a little bit, and try and make our audio sound the best that we can. So let's jump into this plugin, show you how it works. We're going to cover everything. You're going to get it for free if it's within the first 48 hours here. And yeah, with that said, let's jump into this video. Go ahead and turn it on now. This is going to be the after of what it sounds like when we turn on this plugin. All right, so it's a subtle difference there, but I think it helps just kind of bring a little bit of clarity to the voice, right? I always find that in that little less than 1, little more than 2K range, you're going to find something that kind of muddies up your dialogue a little bit. So I didn't turn it up too much. I reduced it by about 5 dB here, and I think that works out pretty good. And I got the sump pump going. Can you guys hear that? The sump pump? I got to move my studio to the other side of the basement. Definitely got to do that. That's on my to-do list. All right, anyways, now we're going to take a look at the higher end frequencies. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to loop my playback. And I'm going to come to my plus 10K range here. And I'm just going to give it a little boost, a little cut, and kind of see how it sounds. And hopefully you guys are able to hear this too. If you've got good headphones, definitely put them on. That's going to help you just hear the differences pretty good. So let's loop it, and here we go. Go ahead and turn it on now. This is going to be the after of what it sounds like when we turn on this plugin, work with the settings a little bit, and try and make our audio sound the best that we can. So let's jump into this plugin, show you how it works. We're going to cover everything. You're going to get it for free if it's within the first 48 hours here. And yeah, with that said, let's jump into this video. All right, so I think that's pretty good. I gave it a plus 4 dB boost. I think it sounds all right. You notice if I pulled it down, it started to sound a little bit muddy, right? And we don't want that. We want the voice to be clear and crisp. 2 knobs out of the way. We got our bass to go. And I think it's definitely sounding better. I did do a little before and after there at the end. So maybe you could hear that difference. I hope you guys could hear that difference. So the last thing we want to do is look at the low end. Now, because I use the lav mic, I find that lav mics notoriously have like no low end to it, right? We need to a lot of times boost, you know, a little bit in that lower end range just to help it kind of fill out the sound a little bit. So what I'm going to do is loop this clip again, and I want to set my bass. I'm thinking maybe 250 is, you know, where I want to add a little bit of warmth and a little bit of body and low end bass to this clip. Is that going to work out? I don't know. We may need to change some of the numbers a little bit and just see how it works. I'm also going to just slide down and reduce the decibel level below 50 there, just so you guys can hear the difference. So listen in. Let me know. Can you hear the differences here? And let's do it. Go ahead and turn it on now. This is going to be the after of what it sounds like when we turn on this plugin, work with the settings a little bit, and try and make our audio sound the best that we can. So let's jump into this plugin, show you how it works. We're going to cover everything. You're going to get it for free if it's within the first 48 hours here. And yeah, with that said, let's jump into this video. Go ahead and turn it on now. This is going to be the after of what it sounds like when we turn on this plugin, work with the settings a little bit, and try and make our audio sound the best that we can. So let's jump into this plugin, show you how it works. We're going to cover everything. You're going to get it for free if it's within the first 48 hours here. And yeah, with that said, let's jump into this video. All right, so can you guys hear that? It kind of added in some warmth, right, back into the clip. Now, I guessed wrong. 250 hertz didn't sound good. It kind of sounded like it started to make it a little, I don't know, like muffled sounding. So I dropped it back to 120 hertz, and that seemed to be the sweet spot for this particular audio clip. It may be different for your clip, so you got to just try the different settings and see which one makes the biggest difference. Now, you notice when I went below 0 and I dropped out some of those frequencies below 50K, it just sounded really hollow, right? It really just sounded like the audio was missing something, right? It sounded hollow and didn't have the warmth and body to it. So I think by going with 120 hertz here, and I jacked it up pretty good, you know, about 10 there, 10 dB, I boosted it. I think that brought back some of the warmth into our clip here. So let me just play through one more time. I'm going to turn it on and off as it's playing. You guys can hear the difference, and let me know what you think. Can you hear the difference? Do you think it made an improvement? Was it easy? I mean, I don't think EQ can get a whole lot easier than this, right? Unless you just had a preset to hit, which I do have EQ presets. But I think this is pretty easy. So let's listen in and hear how it sounds a little before and after. Go ahead and turn it on now. This is going to be the after of what it sounds like when we turn on this plugin, work with the settings a little bit, and try and make our audio sound the best that we can. So let's jump into this plugin, show you how it works. We're going to cover everything. Go ahead and turn it on now. This is going to be the after of what it sounds like when we turn on this plugin, work with the settings a little bit, and try and make our audio sound the best that we can. So let's jump into this plugin, show you how it works. So I hope you guys can hear that. I think it made a big difference, and it would have been really fast had I not been explaining it, right? Just to go through, play through, change these couple dials real quick. And I mean, it's a great plugin. If you don't know a ton about EQ, you don't want to spend a lot of time on EQ, something like this is going to make it real quick and easy to help take your dialogue and just make it sound a little bit better. So definitely check out the link in the description if you're within 48 hours from the release of this video. That is Sunday, January 29th at 9 a.m. If it's before then, you guys can get this plugin for free. And I mean, it's great. I don't think you would regret it. And hey, for free, you download it, you try it. If you don't like it, you can always delete it. You know what I mean? So definitely try it out. Check it out. Let me know what you think. I want to hear your thoughts on both our example here. And if you download it, what is your experience using this plugin? Do you like it? And how does it help your audio? Now, real quick, to download the free plugin, you need to use the link in the description. And to get it installed, you need to come over to the Waves website, which is where we are right now. You want to come to downloads up over here at the top, come to downloads, click on that, and that's going to bring this up, and you need to download Waves Central. This is the installer that will install any of the Waves plugins for you. So go ahead and hit download. It's going to bring you to this page. You select whether you need Mac or Windows. I'm a Mac guy, so I got the Mac version. You're going to go ahead and download that, and when you do that and open it up, it's going to look a little something like this. When you get here, you can come up to the top, click on the search, and it may link you right to it. I'm not 100% sure, but if it doesn't, come up here and type in Kramer HLS, and it should pop up right here. You're going to go ahead and click on the little circle here, and then you can go ahead and click install. Waves is going to go ahead and it's going to install it. Now make sure you've got DaVinci Resolve closed at this point. Let it install, and then once it's installed, you can jump into Resolve, and Resolve should automatically load it up for you. At least with all the Waves plugins that I've used, it's always automatically loaded it up. And keep in mind, you can use this in any other audio program that takes a VST plugin. It doesn't have to be just DaVinci Resolve. And a quick side note, DaVinci Resolve is not officially supported by Waves, but all that means is that they haven't had a chance to test it out and do all the back-end, testing and all that you need to do when you want to, approve your plugins for another program. But they do work just fine. I've got no issues. I've used tons of them, so have many other people. There's no issues in DaVinci Resolve with the Waves plugins. They actually work really, really good. So keep that in mind if you're using it in DaVinci Resolve only. If you're using it in any of your other audio programs, Audacity, Pro Tools, any one of the millions of other programs that you got out there that you can edit audio in, it's probably going to work just fine there. And just jumping back into Resolve here, in case you don't see it once you open up DaVinci Resolve and it doesn't load up automatically, here's what you can check to make sure that you're seeing the plugins. So in Resolve, you can come up to DaVinci Resolve at the top, down to Preferences. That's going to bring up your preferences here. Go System at the top, Audio Plugins, and you can add in the folder right here for your plugins if you know where to find it, or it may even show up down here. It says Available Plugins. You can scroll down, find the Kramer one. You can see I've got tons of them in here. The Kramer guy, where are you? H-I-J-K. It's under K. There it is, Kramer Mono and Stereo, and just make sure that those are checked on so that DaVinci Resolve knows where to look and says, hey, load these guys up when I start Resolve. And once you do that, you should be good to go. You can use it here in DaVinci Resolve. So a huge thank you to Waves for partnering up with me and allowing me to give this plugin to you guys for free for the next 48 hours. I hope a lot of you guys get in on this because it's great to have options, right? You may not know how to work with the EQ so well, may be a little intimidating, but if you've got a plugin like this, it just helps your audio sound better, quick, easy, and takes a lot of the hard work out of audio editing for you guys. So again, a big thank you to Waves, and if you guys want to check out anything else they got, definitely check out the link in the description below. Tons of great stuff over there. With that said, guys, I'm going to get back to making some more vids here for you guys. Tutorials, fun stuff, things that make your job easier. And with that said, I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Peace.